Hello and welcome to Facebook Live 129, right? Yes, 129 of 365 days of Facebook Live. I think I just said that. My name is Jessica Lozano and I am a relationship coach and feminine embodiment mentor, helping women have extraordinary love lives with the love of their life. And I am really excited to be here to share with you about my journey on finding the one. This is a 5-part series. Today we're on part 2 of this journey from the very beginning. So we're on part 2 to share with you the full detail, the full experience, the full journey of my life to have the relationship that I have. Because on the outside, it can maybe look like, and I've said things like that. I manifested Ron in 3 months, right? I have said that. After I broke up with my ex, I was like, and Ron came into my life 3 months after that. So it can seem like, oh yeah, like it came so easy to her. It came so easy to her, but that's far from the truth. I've had a very long history of how to get here with Ron, to maintain this relationship, to continue to evolve this relationship, not even maintain, fortify and evolve. And I have history of like, I was never this goody tissues kind of girl. I was very highly misguided, really highly doing things that were not in integrity of who I really wanted to be, but I was just in so much pain, so much suffering, and didn't have the right moral compass in my life to guide me to guide me to truth, to guide me to alignment, to guide me to be like a woman of integrity, right? So I share that, and which is why it's so important for me to share the very beginning of my story, because union and sacred union, it doesn't matter where you've been, it matters where you're going, and it matters how much you continue to evolve yourself, right? So this is why I'm sharing the entirety of the story, you know, as much as I possibly can. There's like a lot of things that happened in between that, you know, that just giving you the essence of the entire story. So this is to let me see, essence of the entire story. Okay. If you are interested, if you're on this path of finding the one, which probably you are if you're catching this live, I'm hosting a free masterclass called Finding the One, what it takes to have the relationship of a lifetime. It starts September 4th. It is completely free. It is 4 modules plus a Q&A, a live Q&A on Zoom, so that we can really get in there and connect and all the things. It's completely free. It will be sold separately afterwards. So if this is a masterclass where I'm going to spill all the beans, all the things that I really did. Like, I'm giving you the story and the big essence, and a lot of the, you know, I am sharing with you some of the things that I did along the path, but I'm really going to go in there inside of this masterclass. So if you are interested, just let me know, send me a link or send me a message or comment below the one, and I will send you the link and you can join. I also have a VIP option for the women who, for 11 women who are on this path, this flame of truth path, who are holding that flame of truth, who are holding that beacon to be the call that the man responds to. And you really, you're wanting coaching, you're wanting advice about where you are and about where you're going, and what are the nuances in your love life, in your life in general, that are blocking, that are creating blocks to this love. So I'm going to help you clear these blocks, clear these obstacles, and be in that frequency of what it is that you desire with him, with this love. All right. So, which that one is inside of the landing page that you can, if you want to go ahead and purchase that, it's only $44, which is a hell of a deal and freaking so worth it if you ask me. That's inside of the landing page. Okay. So, part two. This is where I really start to make shifts. So where I left off is that I received a phone call. So Mind you, I've blocked him on everything. There's no way that this man can get in contact with him. He doesn't even know where I live. And I received this phone call that said Skype, like a Skype number. I'm like, what is this? Like, who is this? So at the time, you know, we didn't get as much spam calls as we did nowadays. If there's a call that I don't know who it is, I'm going straight to like straight to voicemail, and then I would eventually just block that number, right? Because it's spam. But we weren't in those times. This was like 2012. So I answer, and I had a feeling that it might be him, because like Skype, because I knew he did a lot of, there wasn't Zoom back then either, and I knew he did a lot of Skype interviews, international and stuff like that. So I answered the phone. I was like, hello, and it's him. And he's crying, he's apologizing, he's like pouring his heart out to me, how he made a mistake, how he is so sorry, he knows he hurt me, he's extremely sorry for everything that happened, and he did wrong, he knows he hurt me, and you know, all of these, saying everything that I wanted to hear. Everything. And I am just like, you know, and I'm crying. I believe, I can't remember if I was crying or not, but he was like, I miss you. And I'm like, I miss you too. And, you know, saying all these things. And he was like, I was going to find you no matter what. If you didn't pick up this phone, I was going to find where you live. And I was like, well, it's a gated community. He's like, I would have figured out a way to get in there. He's like, I would have found you. Like the prince, the knight in shining armor was coming to the rescue, to the damsel in distress. This is what I felt. I was like, oh my God, he's here. He's coming for me. Meanwhile, I'm still a little confused. He's like, he wants to take me to dinner. And I think I said, like, let me think about it. Then I asked my mom, and mom was like, yeah, sure, you know, go to dinner with him, but, you know, keep your, boom. So like, all right, what do I wear? And I tell him, okay, I'll go to dinner with you. I was like, you have to come pick me up. So he comes get me. I'm still like figuring out, like, I'm really confused. I'm very confused, right? Because during this breakup, during this time before he had called me, it was probably like a month that we were broken up, or if maybe less, I'm not sure. But I remember having dinner with my mother and with my cousin, and it was like the trance had been broken. I remember talking to them. I'm not sure exactly what they said, what it was, but it was like I could see very clearly how I was being controlled, how I was being manipulated, how I was just like blindly following, how I was just in this place of like a trance. Like that's what it felt like. And when I saw, like what I saw around me was like the Twilight Zone. It felt like very, like if things could move, it looked like everything was moving. I was just like, oh my God, I was like in this trance with this man. I was just like hypnotized. So that was really mind-boggling to me, as like having this awareness, like this trance now was broken. So I'm confused, right? As he calls me, he's saying all the things that I ever wanted. I'm also still in this place of very confused. It's very innocent. A very innocent confusion of what's happening, right? Very like, do I take him back? Do I not take him back? Like, I don't know what to do. How do I know I'm doing the right thing? Like, it was these questions that I didn't even know how to verbalize them, but I could feel them, right? At this time, my communication wasn't very well, wasn't very good at self-awareness and really taking what I felt and like, okay, Jessica, let's write this down and see what you feel. It was just something that I could feel in my body. So he comes to my house, and he has this huge bouquet. And he's like, hey, mommy. He has this card. And this card is like all the things that he loves about me. All the things. Like every millimeter of this card is filled. Like the whole thing is filled. And it was like 100 things that he loved about me, right? And I'm like swept away. I'm like, this is this grandiose gesture that he was doing for me, coming to save save the princess, the damsel in distress, the knight in shining armor, saying all the things that I've ever wanted to hear from him, right? So he takes me, we go to a restaurant, and we're having dinner and we're talking, and there's a lot of sexual energy, like a lot of like energy being transmuted during this dinner, like how we're touching each other, and like you could just feel like there's a lot of energy, a lot of tension, a lot of eroticism going on between us. And I remember like noticing how my body language was acting towards him, how it was like my hand on his lap, his hand on mine, like the super flirtatious, like sexual energy being transmuted between one another. But I also felt like my body was telling me like, don't do it. Don't take him back. This is a no. Don't do it. Don't do it, right? My body was like rejecting him. I could feel it. But my mind and my wounded inner child was like, look, the one who has eroticized trauma was like, look what he's doing. Look at all the things that he's saying. Like, he wants you back. He wants you back. Like, just take him back. Like, go for it, right? So in this moment, as we're having dinner, he wants to go back to his place. And I was just like, should I do it? And I was just like, I guess so. Like, let me just go with the flow, right? Let me just go with the flow, right? Just ignore my own intuition, ignore what my body's telling me, and just go with the flow. So we go to his house, one thing led to another, and okay, we're gonna try to work this out. So because our relationship ended very traumatic, so much involved in that breakup, so many people involved in it. It was just so like very tragic, very like traumatic, right? It was not a smooth transition to get back together. And just the nature of our relationship is very volatile. So it was not an easy thing getting back. And before you knew it, we're fighting again. Like highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening here? I was like, what is happening here? He came back for me. He said all these things that I've ever wanted to hear. Why are we fighting again? Like, I was confused. I was hurt. I was like, why do I feel the same way that I felt before? Then here I go again, crying myself to sleep, praying. I was like, God, just tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. Do I stay with him or do I not stay with him? Do I stay with him? Do I not stay with him? And at the time, I at least knew enough not to make any moves unless I knew like if you don't know what to do, don't make a move at all, right? That's kind of what my theory was at the time. Like, if I don't know what to do, don't make any decision until you clearly know. So I'm like praying, I'm crying myself to sleep for like, God, felt like 2 weeks. Maybe it wasn't 2 weeks, but you know how time is. As I'm recounting these stories and I'm thinking back, I'm like, what year was it? Was it really 2 years? Was it a year and a half? So time can be really weird. To me, it felt like it was 2 weeks. Maybe it was less. But I was crying myself to sleep, praying. Tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do. Like, do I stay or do I go? I will, if whatever you tell me to do, I will do it, right? So one day I'm driving home. I'm leaving work, driving to his house. And I remember this like voice comes in and it says, don't give up, try again. And in a split of a second, what I'm going to tell you is going to be like probably a couple of minutes, but this all happened in my mind like this. My own consciousness brought back memories of where I would quit very often, like in gymnastics and cheerleading and diving. Like, I was very competitive. Like, those were a big deal to me. And it showed me like you quit very often. So it's just like the message was like, okay, don't quit, right? It said, don't give up, try again. Then I also remembered how last time I heard this voice was in my first long-term relationship, where it said, I was woken up in the middle of my sleep from a voice that said, you're rushing the relationship. So at the time I was working on Course in Miracles. It's a metaphysical text. And which is why I believe this voice like came in. So I was starting to spiritually open. This voice came in, it woke me right out of my sleep like you see in the movies. And it startled me because it was like this really deep, authoritative voice. Like a loving, authoritative voice, very fatherly, but I was just like, oh God. I was like, this is fucking weird. I don't know what this is. Like, I'm going to ignore it. So I did. And then that relationship ended up really like very dramatic. Not traumatic, but very dramatic. I was like, well, I remember what happened the last time I didn't listen to this voice. Like, let me make sure I listen to this voice now. So all of these things are going through my mind super fast. And then I respond to the voice and I said, okay. And in that moment, it was like everything, my whole world like flipped in a really beautiful way, because there was so much pain that I was holding, so much grievances. I felt so betrayed with how this whole breakup went down by so many different people that surround me. I felt very alone. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of like pain and suffering, right? Then that's what I've been carrying and holding with me, and like just like this blob of energy, of density. And as soon as I said okay, it like released. It was like a 180, and I was like this complete peace. It was I have still to this day have not experienced that level of peace. Like, it was like literally nothing bothered me. I remember getting to the house, arriving to his house, his kids were there, and they all looked at me like, you look different. Like, you're acting different in a good way. They're like, you're not like responding, you're not angry, you don't have this permanent bitch face on, like you're not like, because that's how I was very angry, permanent bitch face, very snappy, very fiery, very like a porcupine. So they were like, wow, like we love this Jessica. So I was like, okay, this means that this is what I'm supposed to do. For if I said okay to this voice and this is how I felt, I'm supposed to be in this relationship. This is what this voice was telling me. So I decided like, okay, I'm going to stay in this relationship, right? This is the answer to my prayers. I'm going to stay. So this peace did not last very long. This peace lasted, I don't know, maybe 4 days, 7 days, because I couldn't hold it. I didn't know how to hold it. I didn't know any of the things that I know now of like, okay, let's make sure that your life is like, what are the structures? What are the standards? What are your boundaries? What are like, okay, make sure you stay in your practices. Like, I had no idea how to hold this. And then slowly but surely, like I went back to my default self. And this time though, I was like, okay, I got answers praying. I remember when I felt my happiest up until this point was whenever I was working on my spirituality, whenever I was working on A Course in Miracles, right? That was like the way that I had my first spiritual awakening, was A Course in Miracles. Like, I remember the guy who was hosting these classes, like, okay, if I'm supposed to be here, I'm really going to work on this, but I'm not going to see therapists anymore, because we were still trying to try these different therapists. I'm like, these therapists are not working. Like, they literally are not working. I need to do this my way, right? So this is like the first time that I reclaimed my power. I really started to like take it a little bit more self-leadership in my life. So I remember I called Brian Sheen. He was the one who was hosting these classes. I'm like, hey, I would love to do some one-on-one work with you. Like, I want to work with you. I'm having this relationship and blah, blah, blah. So I start working with him. I start to really dive deep into like spiritual healing. I was working with him. I was taking workshops. I was doing breathwork sessions, like everything spiritual, meditating, like just diving in there. And my man, him at the time, was also like on the same boat. Like, he's like, yes, let's try to make this work, right? So we're diving into all of these different practices, right? So I'm feeling myself like get better spiritually. I remember taking this shadow workshop, and it was like the best workshop I had ever attended. At the time, I was like, oh my God, like I was able to release so much, a lot of somatic stuff, because in this shadow workshop, we worked on a lot of bioenergetics, and I was able to physically release a lot of anger that I had in my body. I felt like a weight was like shedded off of me. I remember glowing after this workshop, everyone asking me like, oh my God, what did you do? What did you do? You look like you're glowing, right? I'm like, oh, the shadow workshop, it was amazing, right? So I'm feeling this spiritual growth. Like I'm healing a lot of things with my mother, with my father, with things like I'm healing, and I'm feeling spiritually better, but the relationship is still the fucking same. We're still fighting. We're still having these blow up fights. It's still up, it's still down. Not as severe as it was before in the first couple years of the relationship. The second 2 years of the relationship, it was bad, but not that bad. And was like really just left, again, still confused. Like, okay, why am I doing all this spiritual work, but then like the relationship isn't shifting, right? We're having highs, we're having lows, we're having great times, we're having horrible times, we're taking vacations together and trying to make this work. And it just doesn't feel like anything is settling. Like nothing is settling, right? It's still up and down. So eventually we get into this big fight again, and he kicks me out again. For the second time, he kicks me out of the house. This is around fall. We always had broken up around fall time. Always had the most problems around this time. And I am just like, again, devastated, heartbroken. I'm like, what the fuck? And I remember spending Thanksgiving with my family without him. I remember my cousins telling me like, oh, why are you here? I was like, I broke up with my ex. They're like, oh yeah, of course that's why you're here. And I was like, wow, like that was shit, man. That hit in a way of like, of like, that's true. And that hurts. I was like, I've really ignored my family, you know? I've really been ignoring my family. So I go home, and about a week goes by, and then, you know, I'm sad. And then all of a sudden I start crying, hysterically crying at night, like bawling. But it's really weird because it didn't feel like an emotional cry. It was like this, the experience of crying without the emotions. It was really strange. And it was happened every night, every night, every night, every night. And I was just like, fuck, man. What's happening? I was like, maybe I just miss him. Maybe it's him. Maybe it's him. Maybe, you know, I gave up. And maybe I didn't fight hard enough. I didn't fight back. I just accepted the fact that he kicked me out of his house. I'm going to call him. And so I couldn't take the crying. Couldn't take all that. I equated it to, it's probably him. I need to be stronger. I need to do better. I'm going to call him. So then I sent him a message. So I'm going to close this off here. This one's a little bit more of a shorter part of the story. And I, as a matter of fact, if I recall correctly, this was kind of like the shortest time frame from the first time to the second time to the third time. Like this was like the shortest time frame. But in this, what's really important from this part of the story was that I started to work on myself. Before, I was just so blindly devoted. I was in a trance, right? The first 2 years of this relationship, I was in a trance of like him, the dream, this. It was just like this hypnotic state that I was in, no lie, right? Because once we broke up and I had a conversation with my mother and my cousin, I don't know what it was that they said to me. I really can't remember, but I remember everything shifting in my reality. It was like Twilight Zone, like, woo, was like, holy shit, I was in a fucking trance. So this time around, I said, I'm going to start having a little bit more self-leadership, and I'm going to start doing what I remember felt good about myself, which is spiritual classes, spiritual work, going to these classes, going to these workshops. And I really felt so much better about myself, yet the physical world wasn't shifting yet, which is, there's a reason for that. Our emotional and energetic spiritual realms are around, it's the lighter energy and it's easier to shift. The harder and the last to physically manifest is our bodies and in the physical 3D world. So all of this was like preparation work for the real work that I needed to do, which we're going to get into that probably in day 3. I said it was a 5-part series, right? I did break it up into 5, but maybe it might be 4. It might be 4. But maybe I'll add some extra stuff in part 5. Maybe I'll share more about where we are now. I don't know, we'll see. But either way, so we'll probably get that into tomorrow. And okay, bringing it back. So yeah, so it's really important to start to take your life into your own hands and lead yourself and start doing the things that feel really good to you. Because during this time, I was starting to do things that felt a lot better for me. If I remember correctly, yeah, if I'm getting all the timelines right, but basically this is the essence of everything. So it's really important to take control back into your own hands and really do the things that felt really good to you. Okay, so I'm gonna complete that here. If you want to join the Find the One Masterclass, message me and I would love to send you the link, and I would love to have you there. We start September 4th. And I'm excited to really share all of the juicy things, the actual things that you need to do, and the essence of finding the one to have the relationship of a lifetime. So I will see you tomorrow. Oh, 12:22, perfect timing. I love that number.